Bring this down.
I wonder what that is. It's got to be.
Yeah, no, I have to. I have a lot to learn. I've been like, yeah, it's a lot. This is all. It's like this stuff's all really expensive. This is for the extra mic. If I was interviewing 3 people or whatever, I'd sit right there. You know. But we're live. Everything's good. You can hear yourself.
Live and alive.
Great. So, I guess introduce yourself. I've heard about a lot about you, but I really only got to talk to you like once or twice. So
yeah, I'm just Sarita Ramirez. Yeah. I grew up here in Southwest Detroit. I went to Southwestern, graduated from Southwestern High School back before they killed it.
Oh yeah, that's right. There's a lot of schools closed down.
Yeah. It was a great school. Honestly, yeah. I think I went in its heydays in the '90s. And right after that, I joined the military. I was in the Army for about 7 years. I worked in surgery. I did that outside for over a decade. Yeah. And a few years ago, I went back to school because just physically I couldn't do that job, working in surgery, stand up, assisting, the surgeon and all that. So I went back to school.
Like medical school?
No. I wanted to do something. The job I got from the military was kind of chosen out of a girl from the neighborhood who didn't really know what the job was. It was a great job, I was smart, so I got a good score and I was able to choose like a couple of good jobs, but it was just something that was kind of a great opportunity, that's it gave me a career, but I wanted to do something different. So I'm actually a double major in psychology and urban regional studies and minor in political science because I want to work more with community-based organizations development, especially things having to do with Southwest and Detroit in particular, because there's a lot of stuff happening, a lot of things changing, a lot of development going on, and there needs to be people with a vested interest in the city and the history and the culture and making sure people aren't pushed out.
Yeah.
Like, that's important to me.
And more local instead of, like, just relying on the government. I try to stress that enough. Like, they're not going to do everything for us, so you got to...
No, well, I mean, they don't do anything for us.
Okay,
so,
exactly.
They don't even do the bare minimum, so, it's...
And then what else do you do with you're an advocate for women and women vets? Or
I'm in a couple veterans organizations. I'm the vice president of the Student Veteran Association at University of Michigan Dearborn, and I'm actually the commander of the State of Michigan chapter of the American GI Forum. Okay. It's a Latino veterans organization that was established in 1948 by a veteran, and he earned his PhD, Hector P. Garcia, nice. Mexican in Texas, who was helping to fight because post-World War II, Latin, Black, Native American, Asian veterans weren't given, there was redlining, schools, it was way before civil rights, so people weren't given their same benefits, their GI benefits, and he helped fight for it, and it's now mostly an educational organization. We give not just student veterans, but we give like young people scholarships and whatnot. And for the first time, the organization actually gave Motor City Street Dance Academy a part of their scholarship. During COVID, we didn't have as many participants, so we had a little extra. And me being one of the youngest ever commanders, education is not just college. Education is opportunity. Yeah. So you guys, Motor City provides a lot of that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we have a young student who's actually in the military right now. But let's start about how'd you get into the military?
Well, I always wanted to be a Marine when I was in 5th or 6th grade.
But you joined the Army, correct?
Yeah. Okay. That was so early on. I just always had Marine stickers, ideas in it, wanted to do it. So when I got older, I took the test, the ASVAB they call it. And I got a pretty decent score, and I checked with a couple of different, services instead, because Marines didn't offer as many good jobs at that time, or at least not for me. And the Army offered military intelligence or medical. Okay. And I was in the reserves for the first couple years, so I chose based on what was the closest place I would have to go every weekend. Yeah. And it was either Ohio. I don't want to go to Ohio.
Yeah, that's a terrible place.
No. Or Troy. and I mean, Troy's not
Troy, Michigan?
Yeah, Troy's
okay.
not the best place to drive to, especially down 75 even back then. But yeah, I got it, and that's how I got my medical career.
So you always wanted to go into the military? It wasn't just something for money?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it had less to do with, patriotism than, I don't know, like some kind of like wanting to do something powerful or outside of what was expected, or
greater than
like,
you,
or even there may have been like a sex and gender aspect to it too, like I'm gonna do something
like I can
to
do
be
this
tough,
too. So how did that go, going through boot camp and all that? Was it
it was great. It was, I mean, it was wild. It was difficult. I definitely, I got smoked a lot. They call it where they always, you see the things where they make you do push-ups randomly and all that. And because I was, I was very small when I graduated high school. I was like 100-pound soaking wet, like, regular, like girl from, like going to the military. And by the time I got out, I had gained like 15 pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was pretty cool. And like, they talk a lot of shit, but I really, really, really lucked out because randomly my drill sergeant Daryl Phelps, I don't know, he's got to be out there somewhere still. He was passing out mail one day, and he always talked shit while he did it. And the first time he handed mail to me, and he was like, "Ramirez, Detroit?" And he looked at me, and he was like, "You're from Southwest, aren't you?"
Yeah.
He just knew, and he's from the East Side. So, like during the whole time, he kind of like he was hard on me and shit, but it was that Detroit. You can't go anywhere without like Detroit.
Yeah,
and Detroit.
yeah.
There's just this Detroit thing. It's like knowing the same person, or you have the same family member.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's like a brotherhood.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah.
Especially when you're out of state or out of even like out of state, but definitely out of the state. It's like, oh, you're from Detroit?
Man, it's like a gang if you're out of state.
Yeah,
it's like
I have Detroit
who did
tattoo, and people be like, "Is your name David? Or are you from Detroit?" Like, I'm from Detroit. Like,
And then I want to talk about who. Okay, tell me about these Davids. Like, who
I have met people who like have the Detroit D, and it's for their first letter, first initial, or like their last name initial.
I get it. It's really cool. It's just old English.
Yeah, but still, it's ours.
No, Detroit's
it. So like, how was it being a woman in the military? Like, like you said, you saw combat, right?
No, I trained to go to Afghanistan, but I actually had a pretty significant knee injury that kind of stopped that. But my occupation in the service was something that you didn't have to be deployed to do. You didn't have to go overseas to do. I was always what was called attached, where I trained with and I worked with a combat support hospital, but I still had to work like in fixed facilities or hospitals and surgery, because everybody still needs surgery, like whether it's elective or emergent or scheduled like regularly, whether it's family members of people who live on post, retirees, emergencies, I was able to do like actually practice that for a while and had a good career.
So you got a whole medical degree off that, or not medical? Like, how did that work?
I guess the equivalent is like a 4-year a degree in surgical sciences. You learn aseptic technique, you learn anatomy, physiology. Things don't. You don't get credit for stuff like you really should. We know how it is. It was essentially vocational school. Yeah. But there are equivalent like college programs and stuff. But no, I lucked out. They paid me to go. So I don't recommend it. It's rough. And, I had a long career. I got hurt, and it's tumultuous being a woman, having to the statistics.
Looked up some research like about the harassment and all that stuff before you came in, because I wasn't sure.
Oh yeah.
Anything that was gonna happen, but did you have to go through any of that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I definitely unfortunately had instances that occurred. Significant ones in particular. I don't have any shame like sharing that. I was a victim of MST, military sexual trauma. I think it affects.
That's pretty common. Right?
It's. Women being put into like an atmosphere with a lot of men. People think it's like, it's asking for trouble. What's trouble is how people like frame that, how they're looking at it. If they already have the idea, that you're not supposed to be here or whatever, it'll be easy for them to have those thoughts about what'd you do to get here. You're not strong enough to have made it, and the doubt, and then which all that prejudice that festers and all that. So I mean, it's always been terrible, but I mean,
like,
women have always had to prove themselves.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's a pretty toxic place to be, especially, as a woman.
And it was a long time. I got out in 2006, so a lot of the things that happened, I mean, I did the right thing. Well, not the right thing. It's there's not a right or wrong. That's I did what would be perceived like to help, like with the case and everything. Reporting right away, had help, all that stuff. My roommate had seen me crying like immediately after, and she was like, "No, we're going." And like all that stuff happened, and still I was, the CID, which are the investigative department, in the military. They were, just the way they ask questions, the way they kind of frame it, the things that they make you feel when they're, asking some stuff. It's I want to keep it as abstract as possible. I don't want to, like trigger warning. Sorry, guys. Guys, girls, and bees.
But that's what my podcast is all about. Just, that's why it's called Ignorant, because people are ignorant to what goes on in some things, I am, for sure. That's why I, ask these questions.
It's a power thing.
Yeah.
So you have like an atmosphere of essentially machismo, and things have always kind of gotten swept under the rug, and especially like even law enforcement. There's a high instance of people being abusers and exploiters and stuff there too. So
like women cops, you mean?
Oh, not just that. There are cops who like use their position to that there are cops that have gone to prison for victimizing people that they know that would be less likely to be believed, like sex workers and stuff like that. Like this is a huge conversation.
Yeah. I heard like it just now became illegal in like Hawaii for where cops cannot have sex. Like undercover cops can now no longer have sex with I was surprised that was not always illegal. That's crazy. They literally allowed all that stuff. So you can imagine what kind of people got taken advantage of in those situations. Because in what states is that still legal in?
I mean, women are seen as commodities to some people, and that means that, there's a certain perception and entitlement around that kind of belief that women are kind of, if you show it off, don't get mad if you expect this or that, or even if you don't show it off, it's like, I don't know, it's just so weird.
It's kind of like how all men are like kind of subliminally like brought up to think that way, really, until you realize that it's not right. You know what I mean? I feel like if it wasn't for my sister and my grandmother, I probably wouldn't. I feel like I was really ignorant and toxic at one point about a lot of this shit, and then my sister's really like, advocate for like she's feminist and like all that, and she just keeps it real with me. So if I ever step out of line, so she makes me think all the time. So
women have to exist differently. We have to consider things differently. We gotta,
really move differently and be safe.
Just
it's crazy.
It sucks.
Yeah,
it's so normalized. Sure. I mean, like we all have stories from being like 13, 14 guys on the street down here going, pss, pss, it's just like, excuse me, sir, I am a child. You know?
And then even like as like me, like I was never really that kind of like guy, but like I do have a lot of friends that do that, and like it seems so normal that like that you're the weirdo for if I call it out, I'm like, oh, bro, don't talk to her like that. It's like, well, what are you, bro? Like, it's like. You just tell it's so normalized here. That's part of the reason why I want to do this and talk about a bunch of different things like that to help try to get rid of that toxic energy that is like so normal to us, because you hear it in kids, and then it also happens all over the world. In like some countries, it's literally normal and legal to treat women like I don't want to disrespect any culture.
No. I mean, even in our own country, what was I was telling somebody. Women have only been able to like go to all colleges and institutions since the 70s. All barriers, like the last barrier to like women getting an education was just broken 50 years ago. And since then women have already like surpassed like men, and how many are in college, how many getting degrees, medical school, stuff like that.
Better in the work field, 100%.
There are more women in the work field and like almost across the board there are more women, but there's more women on the planet too. But they work, they are more likely to be the breadwinner too.
The what?
The breadwinner.
Nowadays. Sure, yeah. And it pays off to hire women more than it does hire men.
And at the same time, though, the weird thing about society is that women take on like a disproportionate part of the labor force,
Yeah.
and the like care of other humans, whether it's
Yeah.
children or elders. They usually are taking care of like other family members or even
Yeah.
both generations. So like that's why they say a lot, like women are, the burden is put out on women for these kind of things to care for family members and whatnot usually. So there are a lot of like factors
emotionally
that
and
keep,
stuff like that. So like emotionally and I guess both. Yeah.
With family and all that stuff. It's just but things are changing and little by little, and I'm really proud of this generation. Cause,
lots changing, but fast too, very fast.
I think COVID really, a lot of things were kind of exposed. People were able to see things a little differently. We're still like divided too politically for people to understand that we're fighting the same kind of
I think it's only getting
economic
worse,
enemy,
too.
but who knows what's gonna happen there.
I know. Apparently, we're about to run out of money, and we might go to war with China. So
that's what they say. So this
you never know nowadays.
This ceiling that's supposed to be lifted is supposed to pay off debts that we've already accrued, that's already passed. So essentially, what happened under the previous administration.
Yeah.
So if they don't pass it now, even though they always passed it under that administration, what they're saying is we don't want to pay the bills of what we already did. It's just Congress, or a part of a certain side of Congress, trying to just stop progress to make it seem different to people who don't understand politics.
Yeah.
It's a manipulation.
And
They're
they
manipulating
don't accept
people.
responsibility either.
Yeah, and it's going to affect people, like people who rely on some, government, programs, even if they only, stop for a couple of days. That could be catastrophic for
everything's
local entities.
Go down.
They don't care.
If that actually happens. That, benefits, just any city workers that's not a cop or law enforcement.
Well, I think city, depending on how their finances are, might be fine. This is like federal, I think active duty soldiers. The VA is separate from that. It's like IRS workers, VA workers, people who are on I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure
certain
stuff like that. All the city parks, majority of border patrols, that
they
would kind of stay open, but then a lot of them wouldn't.
Yeah, if you get most federal money, then
yeah,
it's so stupid.
Schools will be maybe not closed, but they're definitely not gonna get the money they need. They already don't, but they're definitely not gonna get more money.
Yeah, we need to have more bake sales.
Yeah. So did you say? Because I remember that first time we talked, it was so fast. Did you say something about an anti-war socialist, or what was that?
Oh, that I'm me being an Army veteran, but I'm actually a anti-war socialist.
Okay. And what does that mean? Because
I
pretty,
believe in
for my listeners.
Socialism,
I don't know.
everyone. It's hard for me to describe this, so I do know what socialism is. Democratic socialism is like a political ideology where you believe in a democratic institution where people have a say in the politics that are going on or in the decisions that are being made. And the socialist aspect, socialism actually means that the people are the ones who are the investors. So you know how you have the stocks and all that. There are people who have tiny bits of ownership in a corporation or company. Under socialism, that idea, there are different ways to implement it and whatnot. This is so generalized.
Yeah, it's really broad. And
it's a way
really
for
tough.
Yeah, it's a collective where all those in that collective benefit from it.
Yeah.
However that may manifest.
Yeah.
But me, I like to use that term when I kind of to reconcile my military service and whatnot, because I did serve under Bush. I was in when Iraq and Afghanistan happened and whatnot. I did recognize exactly what just happened. We all knew that was.
Were you in before 2001, or did you join after?
Oh yeah, I joined in '99.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's when I graduated high school.
Nice.
I'm an adult.
Straight into it. Yeah.
And I got out in 2006. Yeah, I was in when we all went in when all that stuff happened with Abu Ghraib. The prison that had those horrible pictures and The one soldier, the girl, the pretty blonde, got all the attention, but then there was another soldier that was injured as well. I think I know her name starts with an L. I hate that I forget names, but Dick Cheney, Satan being the vice president and saying, downplaying not having good equipment, and
I just learned a lot about him in the last few months. And that is insane.
Yeah, he's
he literally the whole thing.
Like he's literally
That's
a Sith
crazy.
Lord. He has an artificial heart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's the
Crazy.
main
He
boss.
was literally the president. He was the real president. Like Bush.
George Bush
was
almost choked on a press.
Just took the blame for everything. Like Dick Cheney just pulled the strings. I didn't know that until literally like a month ago.
George Bush is like a dynasty. His dad, George W. Bush is Bush to George Herbert Bush, who was on The Simpsons. Well, his character was the first Bush. He only served one term, but he was also a vice president too.
Yeah.
But he started out in the CIA, and I believe his father.
Yeah, it's like the last
started out too.
Not like the last two, but before that.
Yeah.
There's like 4 or 5 presidents in a row. They're all CIA.
They're
like presidents of the CIA.
Or directors.
Yeah, directors, whatever it is. That's insane.
Politics are, it's a lot of nepotism.
Yeah, it's a lot. I can't talk about it like I know about it because I just read so I can like if anything happens I can be like, well, I did see that in the news. It's like I forgot who it was. I think it was like Denzel Washington or one of them. He basically said that like if you don't watch the news then you're uninformed. If you do watch the news you're misinformed. It's like you gotta know. Like you gotta know what's going on. Kinda. You gotta.
Media literacy is what they call it, and that's a big thing that's actually really important. I think they're starting to teach it in some high schools.
Yeah.
I know, like, one of my political science courses, like, we took it. So media bias means, like, to be aware that, almost every publication has a bias, left, right, or something. Exactly. But some have it only to certain degrees. Some have it very minimal.
Yeah.
You need to know, there's actually a chart online that's made by professors, like, without any kind of whatever. It shows, like, the center is, like, the most factual, with like of course left and right being the conservative liberal political spectrum, and then up and down is like how correct or how incendiary it is. Like down here would be InfoWars and a little bit above that Occupy Democrats, which just kind of sure they talk about like Democrat or progressive causes, but they kind of also are a little sensational. And then up higher would be like your Reuters and your Associated Press, which are very, esteemed international sources. And people don't know that. Like, what they think, you read an article and that's the news, but you need to like find, if you really are like, what's going on with this? Like, you have to read multiple sources, multiple kinds of sources from both sides, the middle, up and down, not the down, like whatever, but and we're not teaching people how to like. You critically think like that. Yeah,
and it's so important because like you fall for so much shit. Like when you watch this stuff, like I had to delete Facebook because I would just get so frustrated with some of these videos, and I had to realize, especially during like when Trump was president, like the election and all of that. There's just so much content out there that's just so ridiculous and so toxic, and it worked. Like immediately I'm triggered about this, and now I'm triggered about that, or. You know what I mean? Or pissed, like whatever, what kind of emotions it causes, and then you got to just go about your day.
You're right to be worried about that because just the other day a whistleblower was in front of Congress talking about that, and she essentially, I didn't read up on it yet, but I saw like some highlights. She essentially confirmed that Facebook is well aware of how incendiary, divisive, and misinformed that their things are. I mean,
they know that they're kind of causing depression for like teenagers and like it's insane.
And not just that. So they had up until the election. During the election, there was like a lot of pressure on them to have like all that misinformation be like stopped, and like they did it here and there for the information that like the voting stuff, like hey, is this false information about voting? They did that. Then
they would block people like me and you, but then
totally, I got blocked all the time. But I yell at people. I don't care if you're stupid, you need to know. And what they did was so they did that for a minute and they stopped it, she said. And then they just didn't do the integrity thing anymore, and then in the shadow of that was the planning of the insurrection. So, like, they essentially created a safe place for people to spread misinformation and to thus,
because they knew they were profiting on it. They did their own studies and realized that they're profiting. I feel like a lot of people kind of realize that like social media can be toxic and affect people that, especially young kids that don't know any better.
They're a company. They're
They're
trying to make money, and if it means they can, they exploit you and everything, of course they will.
So the fact that they did their own research and then just said, well, I mean, we're just gonna, fuck it. We could still.
That's the police looking into themselves.
So basically, they just like put a warning. By the way, watch out for misinformation, but it's still gonna let this guy post this shit. No matter what happens, or
right, as long as he doesn't drop an N-bomb, who cares?
Yeah, literally, or affect a certain crowd. Yeah, like BLM or LGBTQ. It's like, as long as they don't go too deep into that, we'll let them. We'll let them post or whatever. It's like all different types of crazy stuff. And then it was weird how they would just got into they had the shutdown or whatever. Like that. How, like just a day after she talks about that.
Yeah, that seems a little.
Shuts down for like 6 hours. I wonder what got deleted, or like I bet you some shit got.
People
deleted.
are saying that too, but one of the other things about it is that everything about Facebook is within Facebook. So if something's not working, even if that one server whatever stopped working, that means that affected that. The
other companies,
the recovery of that information, and it also affected what the information does, open the damn doors of the building that people were locked out of. Their cards couldn't work and stuff for a little while, and then all this troubleshooting to do is within all that stuff that's down. So Facebook essentially did it to themselves. Maybe who knows? Maybe it's some ploy to hide information or whatever, but they are their own, entire, Henry Ford had the city and all that stuff that, like Jeff Bezos wants to do, which is probably be don't move there, guys. It's a trap. Don't do it. Jeff Bezos wants to build, cities where people who work for him can live and stuff.
Oh, that's
so
crazy.
He essentially wants to own communities where his workers reside that he already doesn't give breaks to. And, don't do it, guys.
That's what they used to do in minor towns and stuff like that. Now those towns are all abandoned and just full of drugs and stuff like that. Like in Arizona and stuff, there's massive mines out there, and now there's just small towns and they don't have anything. They got small stores, liquor stores, and shit like that. But you can tell at one point it was flourishing because everybody worked in that mine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Ray Mine and all that stuff.
Do you know what do they mine in there?
Copper. At one point, all the pennies came from Arizona. At one point, when it was,
they probably exploited the hell out of it. They probably
Yeah, I think it's Ray Mine's still open. You see the big ass trucks and stuff up there, but just a bunch of native land.
And who's benefiting from it? Probably private companies and stuff. Maybe even the federal government when it should be given to indigenous people. That's
exactly. That's a whole other story. Seriously, that place is. I learned a lot living out in Arizona about the natives and stuff like that. I feel like I want to sit down and learn a lot more about that too.
I've been there once.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I want to learn more about our native population here, or what used to be here at least in Michigan. You know what I mean?
I may have a book or something because I took a couple years back a Michigan history class.
Yeah.
And there were Ojibwa, because we had a significant Native American population. We had some significant atrocities, and I wish I could discuss that more in detail. You got to get we
get some pros in here.
Man, that's gonna be a great conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I have Reyes with Culture Creators. I think he might be able to plug me in with some locals. But so I want to talk more about. So what is it? What goes on? What's your mission with women vets and people of color vets? I will say that when I think of vets, and I feel like mostly everybody, a lot of people are like this. When I think of vets, I'm usually thinking of the homeless population, kind of, or thinking of like old white guys. You know what I mean? Like that you see on the football field, you know what I mean, on TV or
the stereotypical.
You know what I mean. And then when I heard you talk about it, and I was like, I guess I literally have my own friends and family that are Mexican or black or whatever, they're vets, and I don't even think about them. But when I think about vets on Memorial Day or whatever Veterans Day, I don't think about that. I'll go on Facebook, hey, shout out all the vets, blah blah, but I totally forget that they're vets. You know what I mean?
I mean, what is it now? About almost 20% are women. Wow. I'm not sure what the demographics as far as people of color are, but it's always been disproportionately low income people that have joined. That's one of the big draws. So, there's, but that's rural as well. My mission, I do a lot of stuff with the veterans community and whatnot, especially with the GI Forum with education. But the thing, especially, I want to focus in when it comes to school is this community. You know what I mean? Like I interned with here in District 6 Council Member Raquel Castañeda Lopez a couple summers ago, and one of the things I did for veterans there was like I did a list of like local resources and stuff like that people don't know about. If I ever hear someone's a veteran, I always like right away like, hey, have you done this? Have you secured these benefits or whatnot? So if anyone has a family member that was in the service, this is what I suggest you do. And they haven't gotten their benefits or anything like that. Contact a Veteran Service Officer, VSO, either the Disabled American Veterans or American Legion. They are absolutely 100% free. They're funded, federally funded, and they help veterans get their benefits. And like some benefits are like apprehensive about doing it, especially the older guys, because they're like, I don't know. Because there is one aspect about it that makes them uncomfortable. It's you have to sign a power of attorney, but it's limited to only one thing, to get your military medical records. That's the only thing in the whole wide world that gives permission for. And that's a veterans, as long as you get like a VSO, like through like the Disabled American Veterans, American Legion, and what else is that, VFW or something like that, absolutely. But it's completely free, always, free. They, they submit paperwork based on, where you served, in what capacity. There's a lot of environmental factors over the years that they found out. There's, if you were diagnosed with stuff in the military, if you got sick or hurt yourself in the military, there's like stuff you could be covered for. A lot of people may have parents and grandparents that could be missing out on anywhere from $300 to $3,000 a month.
My grandfather's so friends with all that shit.
Yeah, and I'm all about like, defund the military industrial complex, but funding veterans, is different. Like the VA does not get funded by the military budget. Those billions and trillions of stuff daily that just goes down the drain to hurt people, that does not go to help the people that they send over there based on false premises. It only is for the people who are making money off of it, contractors and companies like Dick Cheney's old company.
So when you say anti-war and all that, and defund the military complex, what do you mean by that, or what's the?
So the military-industrial complex is basically the term that describes everyone who benefits from war.
Okay.
When you send soldiers, sailor, airmen, and Marines over to fight a battle based on whatever the reason may be, the last justified, war we really had was World War II. But any other of these conflicts that you go and whatnot, contracted companies have to build the planes. They have to, create things for it. There's technology. There's like all this stuff. You go over there and, soldiers are, protecting these areas that get exploited for resources by, private companies and whatnot. It's a lot of this stuff is above my pay grade to even describe in detail and whatnot. But essentially we get put in situations that are not justified. We have no reason to be in this other country, like Iraq and Afghanistan, where we subjugated people to great harm based on great lies, and only to benefit like these corporations and these companies that go over there, because they build things over there. You have contractors that make hundreds of thousands of dollars, selling arms, selling planes, building things. We just threw, there was news months ago where we threw away trillions of dollars on some Air Force plane and whatnot.
That didn't work or something, or?
Yeah, it just it failed. Like there was it just it was like years and years of building and research and stuff. But I'd have to read that up again. I like to try to substantiate, know exactly what I'm talking about. But,
100%. Yeah, I agree. I think it's important to.
Yeah,
it's okay to have conversations and stuff like that, but it's also important to acknowledge when you're ignorant, where you don't know everything about some of these things.
Yeah, no, people say, all the stuff we left in Afghanistan and whatnot. We always leave stuff. We always do. We always do. We always do. That was not. Of course we do. We're not going to spend billions to bring it back And if there's any technology in it, we have to destroy the technology in case it was compromised. You know what I mean? It's way too complicated. It's just way, and like that's the stuff that gets down the drain. It's wasted money. It's bombs and it's pain. And it's the Iron Dome around Israel that gets whatnot. We fund a lot of stuff. With in the name of defense that.
I do think we need to be more here. I don't think we need to be involved in a lot of countries as much as we are, but
it's about resources.
It's
about what we can get from them.
And like deals made and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But because I have a friend who served in Desert Storm, and he's like batshit crazy. He just talks about like the things he says about Desert Storm. I'm just like, wow. Like it says says all he did was like watch like poppy fields and shit like that, or like. Or like drove shipments places that they weren't allowed to like even know like what it was, or and there was always like private military like with him a lot of times, like guys that weren't in the army or
contractors getting a bunch of money from our government probably.
So but like still like they're all suited up and ready to shoot and kill, but but they weren't the army. They were just there to make sure that the army babysit the army doing the job. Making sure the guys didn't run off with whatever was in the cargo.
That's our government being dirty. I mean, like we're literally working with like mobsters. You know what I mean? They just got nice suits on. It's that's where our money's going. That's where our money's going. We're propping up the wrong things. It sucks, and there's very little like we individually can do. It's just you have to recognize it, understand it, and I feel like that's the best that you can do.
How did you feel about the Afghanistan thing? Do you think you pulled out? You think good?
It was not what it was not unexpected to me. It was like, okay. I mean, what happened was a lot faster than even the government knew. But there were Afghan papers that came out in about 2008 that exposed how the administration, before even like a year or two after we first went into Afghanistan, where they said, what are we doing there? Why are we there? We're not doing anything. We're hurting, civilians are dying. Like they literally, the Bush administration knew what was going on. And when I was I remember having conversations with people like, this is going to be, we're never going to leave. That's why I said we're never going to leave. It's going to be a shit show. And because I was in when it happened. And that's exactly what happened. And everyone's saying, we left, the administration did for months evacuate people, and a lot of people that are there are like people who are making money and whatnot. There aren't, I wouldn't, say that there are people who are like desperate to get out or anything. There are people, for months there's been evacuations all the way back to April. But, as far as like the Taliban taking over and whatnot, the previous administration, the Trump administration, is the one who
deals with them, right?
Talked with them. And like that kind of, that made the government little whatever, but they weren't supposed to do what they did, but they took over the city a lot faster. They, then it was anticipated, but at a slower pace. So the government knew it was going on. The way that it's being like framed now in the news and whatnot, it's from one particular side that wants to utilize it to sway people's opinions politically. But when you look at it, like, I was like a reluctant Joe Biden, supporter, like,
He's just a greater evil.
I guess, whatever. But like, what were we gonna do? Go back in there? What were we gonna do? And I know a lot of people like I got a letter from the VA not long after that, for anyone who was serving, when during this war, and it was a letter from the VA to veterans saying, if you're feeling, if you're feeling a certain way, essentially saying if you're feeling like this is all, what did I serve for? What did I do this for? All that stuff. Like they literally sent out a letter like saying, reach out for help and stuff like that. Because, quite frankly, they know that, most of us are going to be like, it was worthless.
So do you see that a lot right now?
No, I try to stay away from the Facebook and stuff too. And the veterans I surround myself are disproportionately, progressive and open-minded. But I do know a lot that, say it differently and whatnot. It's hard to engage with that. It's misguided. It's, tribalism. It's politics. It's playing sides. It's seeing stuff black and white when the world don't work like that.
I'm not gonna lie. Even as a kid, I always literally used to ask myself. I used to argue with my grandfather, and like, how are they fighting for my freedom over there? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, like, if the war ends tomorrow, like, how does my freedom
it's true.
get fucked up? You know what I mean? Like, what happens? You know, like what happens? What happens to my freedom if the war ends? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and I thought this I was like a little kid. Like, I just remember being like, what happens? How are they fighting for my freedom? Like, what do they mean by that? Like, yeah, I was like, when we got cops here, like, you know, it's like, damn, nobody's protecting us from them when shit goes south there. From, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, I just, from a kid, like, I just, no matter how ignorant I was like, it doesn't make sense.
Kids have very, like, you know, like,
why?
I feel like very, you know, good, like, pragmatic, like, the fuck is this?
Yeah, it doesn't make
like,
sense, you know.
You know,
everything's why. It's like they explain it. It's like, okay, but why? They explain it. Okay, but why? You know? Right. That's how I looked at it this whole time. 'Cause I had a cousin that served, and he's Mexican, but he's like super like right wing and like loves Trump and all that. But like, you know, and he's like, you know, loves that he served and stuff like that. But
he's got the black wraparound.
Yeah, like, you know, so. And I used to argue with him, like, I don't see how did you protect my freedom over there? Like, you know, and I used to ask him that all the time. And I wasn't even trying to be a dick about it. I'm just like,
well, it's the military. Guys like that, like, they gas each other up. The culture is to gas each other up. And it's just like, it's machismo. It's like, you know, that's why they fucked up later, because they're like, I don't need therapy, you know what I mean? And then go on to get 18 DUIs.
It's kind of, it's crazy, actually, because my cousin is in the military now, and he's in the Marines. And we play video games sometimes, you know, and like, he just sounds like such a racist prick sometimes now. And he was never like that. He was never like that. His stepdad, my uncle, he grew up, you know, in the hood, and, you know, went to jail and all that. Now he's very successful and like an accountant or something like that, an analyst or something like that. But so like, he like has always been the guy, like, if one of us get in trouble, he'd take us in or under, like, even like our friends. So like, we have like friends that are like brothers to us because like they lived with us, like, there, like, you know what I mean, like, because their parents weren't really around or whatever, and, you know, they were of all races. I know. You know what I mean, of all races, black or whatever, you know. And so like, my cousin was literally raised with, like, you know, people of color in his house of all races. I think he's like, because he's my uncle's wife's kid, you know, so like, I don't think he's like fully Mexican. I don't know what they are actually, but yeah, he was never like that. He was never in a way around people that like thought like, oh, this or that, you know what I mean? But now that he's in the military, he just talks so reckless, like homophobic, and just like, you know what I mean? And not that he actually like hates like black people or gay people or anything, but like, just
he's
the way
around
he
it,
talks.
he accepts
it.
You
Those
know
are
his boys say. He's internalized it. I mean, you can't say that he don't like think that or whatever anymore. He does now.
No,
If you're fine expressing it, then like, you're like, all right.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I could tell. Now. Yeah, I could definitely tell that. You know,
you gotta call it like it is. It's like, yeah.
He's definitely Trump supporter, but fucking,
he's not racist, but.
Yeah, yes, yeah. That's such a fine line, because I guess it's so weird how like you want to defend people, you know, you want to like, it's just tough. But
you want to think good about people.
He's gonna have a rough time when he comes home though, because you know, none of us are gonna tolerate that shit.
I don't get it. There was a guy I went to high school with. I mean, he was a white guy, but you know, Southwestern, Detroit, and all that. His best friends, you know, black and brown. Like in the 90s. In the 90s, Southwestern High School won an award for being one of the most diverse schools in the nation. Yeah. I think it was like 98 or something, 97, but I was going there, and it was. And I had seen him like on some page and stuff on Facebook years ago. Like, I mean, just saying like, it's, you know what I mean, all the stereotypical low income, you know, it's because of this, you know, and a racial aspect to it and all that. And I was like, bitch, you grew up in the hood. You know what I mean? Like, how are you gonna, you know, think this about people? And you know, it has to do with like how politics is right now since like Obama. Like that polarized. It's just that brought out a lot of racism, and under Trump it was like perfected. You know, we had what the ACLU or the Southern Poverty Law Center counted like a huge spike a little bit after Obama. and a huge spike after Trump was elected in white supremacists and hate groups and stuff that were formed, and
you started to see it everywhere. Like more, like people definitely more comfortable.
We had Nazis literally walking the streets in Charlotte. A year after he was elected, literal Nazis. Like how
with police escorts and shit like that. That shit was so insane.
How is this like a thing in the 21st century?
Yeah, like, it's insane.
Literally fought a war.
Yeah. Arizona was kind of tough sometimes because we had Sheriff Joe Arpaio. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, I know who he is. He should be in prison, but he got pardoned by Trump.
Yeah, and he was awful because like there'd be things on the news all the time, and
how he treated migrants.
And then people in school would talk shit about that, like would think it's a joke or like, you know what I mean? Different type of shit. Or like I think they passed a law. I know it didn't last long. But there's a law where basically the cops had the right to ask for identification from anybody who looked undocumented or whatever the fuck that if you just looked undocumented.
That's profiling.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he got under federal. He got federal lawsuits against that.
Yeah, for that. So, but it did. It was. I'm pretty sure it passed for like a year or two. Like
I know he won something at first. Like he was able to do it, but then but then it got knocked down like years later or something. Or so there was some aspect that did, and then I forgot what it was that he personally was indicted for. Yeah, and then
it was just insane because in school they were making us debate about it, and you could just tell the way some kids are raised. You're like, oh wow, like this is what your household really thinks, And it was mostly like a super religious Mormon school and stuff like that. So like,
oh my God, they have a hell of a history about racism in there. Yeah, that they used to see like literal black people as like bad people according to their religion.
Really?
Like being black was like I don't know about like the mark of Cain or something, Cain and Abel and all that. But it was, it was specified as something not good in the religion at all, and then they were barred from holding any kind of, positions in it and whatnot. So they, Mormonism has a distinctly, prejudiced history.
Yeah.
I had a Mormon friend in the military, so I thought it was.
The only Mormon people of color that I knew a lot of were like Hawaiians or Samoans. Like there was a lot of those.
Colonialism.
Yeah, there's a lot of those in Arizona. Like. Not a lot, but like when you just read them, you'd be like, "Wait, you're Mormon?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, their families and stuff like that. It was pretty shocking.
Well, you never know. I grew up Catholic and Baptist, and Selena was Jehovah's Witness.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's hilarious. I had to bring that up to it.
They think we're all Catholic.
Yeah.
But I'm not religious anymore.
Yeah, I'm not religious anymore at all, but I was born Catholic and like baptized Christian at one point. My grandparents are super religious.
Yeah, so, I had my quinceañera and all that.
Yeah. That's tough. My most religious like family members are like the toughest, to say the least. Mm-hmm. It's like to like explain things to, or like especially the older ones. It's just like, crazy.
The people in my family who are the most religious are the ones who talk bad to people, but they have like 3 baby daddies.
Doesn't mean they're just like super judgmental. How successful they are. It's just like, come on, or like forget that they come from a city like this. And
I think it's a way for some people. I don't know. Each their own belief, but I think religion can be a way for some people to kind of absolve themselves from. Maybe they used to be a certain way or whatever, absolve themselves from it without taking responsibility for it, but also make them feel better than someone else for. Like just this aspect is, God makes them, and you don't have that.
Yeah,
I feel bad for you.
I got half my family are like all cops, so like my grandparents. I always like I want to sit down with them at one point and ask them like how they feel about like cops of color, especially back in the day during all that crazy stuff. And my grandma, she was a woman cop. And she did like raids and stuff like that, like, you know what I mean. And I always wonder if she feels like, I know she told me a few stories where she felt bad, and you could tell like people were just really trying to survive, and she had to arrest them and stuff like that. I could tell that shit eats her up, But,
yeah. Oh, I'm sure it was extremely challenging. I'm sure that there's things she won't tell you about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's sometimes, even today, it's easier to, like. Let some stuff go, like little microaggressions or something. And like back then, I can't even just, I told my kids recently, we are not even an entire generation removed from the Civil Rights Act.
Yeah.
So the kids that you know, their grandparents may have been the ones who were against people having equality and
Isn't that
stuff.
crazy?
You know, like there are, I said, living, breathing, you know, people who are like that. So I had to have those discussions with them, you know, just in case.
Just like what you said about like women having like all the rights they have for the little amount of time. That means that there's people older than 60 and up or 50 and up that supported that shit that's still alive. Like, you know, and they still are voting. They're still doing that shit's crazy to think about.
So all
so,
that
you
stuff.
know, like there's people who are 110%.
The woman who lied about Emmett Till and got him killed is alive.
Yeah, like that's crazy.
Yeah,
I just learned that. Like, I think you were one of the first.
She needs to be in jail, by the way.
Yeah, that's insane. I wonder where she lives. Like, she has to probably live in like a very.
She's got to be in hiding.
Yeah,
be in hiding.
Yeah, like surrounded like a whole KKK subdivision or something.
I mean, I saw something that was, you know, for still prosecuting, you know, Nazis. We need to prosecute her. Yeah. You know, because, I mean, I don't know. I think that there was a grand jury that was convened like some years ago and they decided not to, but that's... Yeah.
Like, so didn't you tell me about like slave owners got paid back and all that stuff?
Oh, yeah, we're talking about reparations because, you know, Japanese got reparations after World War II. Yeah. But there was like a talk, like some of those like weird conservative people were talking about, the governor who ran, who was trying to run during the recall in California. There was a conservative radio host, a black man named Larry Elder. He was running for, he was on the recall ballot because it's a weird thing. Like you do, yes, you want to recall the governor, no, you don't. And if you do want to recall him, here's choices. You know what I mean? So it was really weird. He didn't get recalled. But Larry Elder believes that, you know, he was saying, you know, that slave owners should get reparations. I had seen a little clip of him. And it's funny that he said that because slave owners did get reparations.
Yeah, that's
when slaves were freed, people got compensated for the slaves they lost as like, you know, losing an asset. And, you know, I mean, it's amazing to me like that, you know, like that's not known. I mean, no, it's not. It's American history. They don't teach actual history. So like when people talk about reparations, you know, when you give money to those who subjugated people and like enslaved people, and then like that, you know, probably millions of people were set free and they had no provisions. They had no way to work. Some of them still ended up working for like meager wages, in the same positions or whatnot. And so they weren't able to take that money, you know, like their reparations and invest it in their lives and their homes and stuff. So their children and their children and their children and their children. That's what people talk about, generational wealth. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like there's so many, you know, when you talk about start at the bottom, like, I mean, that's starting like with like negative, you know, absolutely negative, and then still having 100 years until you're able to, you know, participate in society completely free, and then another until right now having to deal with the repercussions of our government, our society, you know, not giving reparations and saying out loud, slavery was wrong, what we did was wrong. These are people. These are our Americans. These are, you know, immediately after slavery happened, like they would have said that, they would have changed the perception. They would have changed, you know, because I mean, people want to act like the government doesn't influence anything, but you know, they made marijuana illegal almost 100 years ago. Before that, it wasn't seen as anything. Yeah. And then ever since it's been illegal, I mean, you have 100 years of misinformation now, you know, so the government absolutely does frame stuff. You know, once gay marriage was legalized, you know, within a couple years, public opinion had changed about it. Yeah. You know, so it is absolutely like, you know, people are informed by things that the government does, you know, and that they, you know, endorse essentially. You know, you can act like you don't, but you know, people do. The same thing with celebrities and shit. You know, I mean, shit. Nicki Minaj got people to actually like Tucker Carlson for a minute. That's crazy. Yeah.
So you've done a lot of research on marijuana and shrooms for vets, or no?
Marijuana, yes. Anecdotal and scientific. You know, I understand the history. You know, it was made illegal by Harry Anslinger in the 30s. He was the director of the Department of Narcotics. Yeah.
Oh, he made it illegal?
Yeah, and he actually started 2 huge stereotypes associated still today. The lazy Mexican stereotype.
Oh, yeah.
And then, a black jazz musician, like, sexualizing white women and stuff, kind of, like, trope that used to be in movies, and, like, Reefer Madness type stuff. So he started that campaign about, lying about the people that do it and saying that it was a detriment to society, saying it made, people of color especially bad, especially men. And then under President Nixon,
said all types of crazy shit.
Oh yeah, and then under President Nixon, he commissioned something called the Schaefer Report, and he was sure it was going to show how bad cannabis was society. His own government came back and said that cannabis, marijuana, weed, is not dangerous, should be decriminalized, and essentially, predicted that the prison industrial complex would happen. Yeah. And Nixon buried the report and started the war on drugs anyway. Yeah, that shit's crazy. Like, our government has literally, and now, like,
we have to states do something about that too, more and more. Yeah. I guess some people are getting, like, released, but not nearly enough. You need to let out everyone at once. Like, right.
I know a lot
probably, like, traumatizing to the society. But,
I think they're doing, like,
to them.
They're quantifying the type of crimes, cannabis-related crimes. Like, if it's just, like, personal, like, possession, stuff like that. I know that Governor Whitmer already last year signed off on tens of thousands, if not, like, 100,000, like, a bunch of people off. But I think, like, severe trafficking or something or whatnot, like, you'd have to look that up. But there are programs for people who have, like, more...
You talk about it.
I know you do. More, like, low-level, infractions, and like there are ways to get that off your record, because you can't even get student loans when you get that. It's insane, because it's a Schedule 1 drug. Schedule 1 drug under the FDA, under the government, says that this item has no medical value and no money will be spent on research and development. Do you know what Schedule 2?
Almost every drug has at least some medical value. Yeah,
Schedule 2 means Schedule 2 gives it medical value and gives it research and development. Cocaine and meth. Schedule 2,
of course,
but not cannabis.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing, and the reason why we have so many issues with, like, the laws, like, in so many states, is that since it's a federal law and a federal issue, with it being a Schedule 1, states can pass all they want and work within their borders, but when it comes to, like, going back and forth and whatnot, that's where the federal government can get you.
Yeah.
And it's, they. Both the Trump and the Obama administration has said they weren't gonna, like, go after people, but both of them did in some capacity. Yeah. Especially Trump under Jeff Sessions, because Jeff Sessions, a little Keebler elf, he hated, like, weed. Like,
really?
He was like.
Probably was like a kid that just started smoking a bunch of dabs and stuff.
He probably saw reefer madness.
Had the privilege and didn't give a shit about his life. Thinks weed does that to everybody now.
Right. He's never touched it, but he knows.
Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah, I'm telling you, he probably had some, like, privileged little kids that ended up smoking weed and threw their privilege out the window, and now he thinks everybody that smokes weed is like that.
Or he wasn't invited to that one, like, all his friends did. Exactly. And he didn't. Like, fuck you guys.
And they all moved on without him.
Yeah, he played the long game.
Yeah.
Hate it here.
Well, this was great. I'm really appreciating you having here. I figured it's already going on an hour, but I think definitely have you on more to break down some of these conversations. Do you have anybody you think I should interview about stuff like this?
I know an up and coming comedian, and she works. She's working in the area a lot. Ophelia.
Okay. I think
Torres. There's a friend of mine who's also a DJ, and she also works a lot with indigenous causes, especially with women and sex trafficking and stuff. So you want to talk about that?
I want to really get into
Pilar Cote. She's amazing. She just did some of the final Fridays with the Detroit Hispanic Development that they did in front. Like, I don't know, I just went the one time. Yeah. But
definitely. I want to really get into a lot of deep conversations on this podcast. I might have to, like, warn people, like, hey, it might be personal, might be, like, and everything could be edited. Things could be edited out too if you ever say something that's, like, incriminating or something. So it's like,
we can neither confirm nor deny anything.
Nothing.
But no, thanks. Let me know anytime. We only scratched the surface.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. And, like, this is, like, first time, so I'm going to edit this, put this together, but this is gonna be, like, a normal thing. So I'll probably have people come on here, like, more than once, or, like, recap or whatever, So it's like,
You probably
it's
have
good,
like,
very,
you know,
like, not
do it around social issues or cultural issues or
if like something breaks, you know, and I know you're related to it, I'm like, hey, let's sit down and talk about what just happened around this event, and you know, I want to get your half of it or what you think about it, like, you know what I mean? So I'm excited about this podcast because I think I'm going to be able to meet a bunch of different cool people and learn a lot.
I had a great time. There was, I feel like, a great rapport. You know, like a lot of like good questions and stuff. So
it's good because I wanted to like write more questions down and figure out like what to ask you. That's why I wanted to buy it earlier because I was like I know parts of what you said, like you know, but I definitely learned a lot more about you now. So I'm gonna have to break into some of that research and stuff like that. What? You fully Mexican or what is it?
Yes. Okay. Well, my mom had her dad was white or part white. Okay. So, but I grew up here in Southwest. My grandparents owned Ramirez Taco Mart.
Oh yeah,
man,
a
million years ago. Yeah. So shout out to anybody who remembers that back in the day. Yeah. You old.
Yeah. So. And shout out Mav, MCSDA that made all this possible.
Yes, thank you. Orange City Street Dance Academy is amazing. I bring my kids here for art classes. Yep. I look at the like awesome classes that I should be coming to and stuff too.
And I learned how to produce this stuff too. So if you want to start a podcast about whatever it is, I can help with that and something with you.
A lot of F-bombs.
Oh yeah, no. Some of this podcast is gonna have to be in a different location because we'll be smoking and having fun.
I want to go to that one.
Like, yeah, we'll be having some.
I've been spoiler alert. I've been drinking my THC the whole time. Shout out to Michigan Squeeze Station.
I'm gonna sit down with Denise and have a conversation with her for sure. And D
over there. I'll be back.
Yeah, that'd be actually best. That way we can smoke and talk. Like, you know,
it's literally here. It could be kind of live too. Hey, we're up here. You want to come? Like I don't know, like where you guys like.
I want to do.
I don't know how this works. So.
Yeah, no. This can go anywhere. It doesn't even have to be plugged in. I got it plugged in right now.
I just know I could talk. I could always talk.
Yeah.
And I have, like I said, I've been through everything. I know a little bit about stuff. So let me know.
Well, if you want, we could go smoke a blunt, celebrate the first podcast.